This is Matt Russell, and welcome to the Daily FX Forum.
So here are the four pairs that I will be discussing this evening: the Euro Pound, the Aussie Kiwi, the Pound Swiss, and the Euro Swiss. So let's go ahead and pull the charts. The first chart is the Euro Pound. If you recall during yesterday's report, or two reports back, this trade set up off the 88.37 area. Prices have rallied off that area right now. I mentioned yesterday how we might take a third or a quarter off the table. I would keep that same kind of bias right now. Mentioned the same advice. If prices get maybe approach that 90 figure, I might look to exit maybe another third or another quarter, but it really depends on your individual risk parameters. And if you're not fully prepared for prices to reverse right now and drop down to that 88.37 area, then you should exit all the position immediately. The next chart is and I also just wanted to say that I would give this one more day. It's sort of like a very loose interpretation that I like to have, is just 3-day rallies, and so kind of see what this candle does right here. Ideally, I'd like to see it take out the high of the previous day, and again, that might reach close to that 90 figure. The next chart is the Aussie Kiwi, and this pair did rally off that 24.37 area, which I was mentioning two reports back, and now the rally is a little more substantial. In this case, I might go ahead and take about half the position off the table. The only reason is this little very short-term resistance line. So prices could find a little bit of resistance right now at current levels here. So again, maybe take about half off the table and hold the rest and kind of see what happens with this candle. And then if prices come down a little bit gently, we might at that point look to add back that part of the trade. But again, that's really up to each individual trader. The next chart is the Pound Swiss, and if you recall during yesterday's report, I was mentioning how we might look to enter at about the 69.02 area. During last night's session, this candle at one point was a green candle, and prices did rally substantially off the initial test of this line. But this is trading, this is real life, and prices did reverse back to the downside. So I didn't mention any profit targets, so a lot of you probably are still in this trade from the 69.02 area, and right now 68.76. Obviously, I don't like that prices have fallen back beneath the support line here, and it could very well act as resistance moving forward. So I would go ahead actually and abandon this trade idea. Maybe a little bit more aggressive traders. What I would say is possibly move the stop beneath, and rather than have it be 75 or 100 pips, which would be about the 168 figure even. Maybe tighten up that risk. That's another option to right beneath the low of this candle here, which is about the 68.58 area, so maybe about 68.50 or 68.48. But again, that's up to each individual trader. That's the thing. If prices do rally here, we can have the same pattern that we have right here, where we do have a close beneath, and then the next bullish candle. But again, this line's getting a little too fuzzy for my taste. Personally, I would exit the trade completely right now, but I would be fully prepared for prices to rally in my face and miss out on that trade. One of the most important emotion, in my opinion, in trading is that feeling of missing out. And I would encourage you to go out there and miss out on trades, because it's an emotion that you have to deal with, before you can kind of get to the other side, if you will. So don't ever be afraid of missing out and exiting a trade and then watching it go up, because sometimes that's the worst thing that can happen, because then you end up staying in the next trade. The whole point is to keep your objective analysis. And when I enter a trade, I do not care. I mean, obviously I care, over the long term, but like on that individual trade, I am always expecting to be wrong, and in that sense, you can never lose, and your risk is always managed, and that's something that you should always keep in mind when trading, and at the very least, it keeps you centered and it keeps you viewing the market in the right light. The last chart is the Euro Swiss. Speaking of viewing the market in the right light, obviously I was speaking about yesterday about this line here, how I like the line, but I was also speaking about how the line is very fuzzy, and how I was staying away from the pair. I did mention a short setup at this line right here, as I did like we had some lines, some price points here acting as support. Then we had not really a breakout, it was just so tiny, and then this line acting as resistance right here, and then we have had a large spike, and it looks scary, but it's honestly only about 20 pips or so on the chart. So if you did enter on that trade recommendation, you're probably still in that trade, and in my opinion, this is a good bearish sign, and this could be a good setup. I like it right here, placing a stop 51.45, maybe a little bit higher, maybe about 10 pips above there, maybe about 51.55, if you will. And I would go ahead maybe and enter this trade right now, but I would mention that this would be for more aggressive traders, only because of what I've been saying for the past several reports, is that in terms of this pair, you should never trust me fully, because obviously I can always be wrong. But in this case, my analysis is a little off kilter, only because of what's going on here in the pair. But again, looking at this in the most objective sense, I do like this the short trade maybe at current levels with a stop above that the 51.50 area. But it's up to each individual trader how they want to approach this situation. Me, personally, I would stay on the sidelines, again, only because of the kind of fuzzy situation, if you will, in terms of fundamentals. Again, my name is Matt Russell, and please stay tuned for a preview of the DailyFX forums. I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome you all to the DailyFX forums. I want to go through the process of how I personally access the forums and how maybe you at home, if you want to access the forums in the future, might do so. The first thing you would do is go to www.DailyFX.com, and that will bring up, obviously, DailyFX.com, and usually there on the upper right hand corner I'll go ahead and click on where it says forum, and that will bring up the first page of the forums. And this view, I personally don't use this view, but this view actually shows you the most recent posts on all the threads within the different sections, and a little detail about those posts, so you can read through and see if there's something catches your interest. But personally, I go ahead and just click on forums and view them in the more traditional sense. Now, these are different threads within the forum. There's a section on education, such as DailyFX course instructor tips, which would be good for newer traders. And then for more advanced traders, and I just want to go ahead, personally, the way I use the forums is I would go through the individual threads, just looking for trade ideas, maybe looking at charts, looking at certain lines that maybe I didn't put up on my chart, but another trader might have put up on their chart. I tend to, shy away from using direct trade recommendations from other forum members, but it helps me to sort of even out my analysis, make sure that I'm seeing things, with the right mind, in terms of, I might be missing stuff that other traders can see, and that's my personal way of using the forum. Every trader is going to be a little bit different in how they use it. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to become an active participant of the members, you would have to go ahead and register. So that's what I'm going to go through now, is the registration process. So assuming you're brand new to the forums, or maybe you've been here a few times and you're not really sure how it works, so I just want to walk through again the registration process. This would be the front page where you would access, or the previous page. You'd have the same little box here on the left hand side. My username and password are already filled out here, but assuming you're a new member, you would click on where it says register, and that will bring up the registration page. If you give me one moment here while my browser loads. And actually first we're going to have some terms of service and DailyFX forum rules. I do suggest reading through the forum rules. Obviously, profanity and spam and things like that are not allowed, but it also gives you insight on how to use the forum and how different traders can use it, in terms of their individual needs. So you would go down to the bottom there. You'd click on where it says I have read all the rules, and then you would go ahead to the register, the formal registration page, and that will bring up here. And you can go ahead and select the username, and how about we'll use 4x, and that name is already in use, so maybe add a few more x's there. Again, it really, your individual username is up to you, and you go ahead and fill in your password, your email address. Now, the most difficult aspect of registration for the DailyFX forums will be figuring out these letters in the box here. Now, I'm a semi-intelligent person, but I have a very difficult time figuring out which letters and numbers to use. Now, there is a reason for this madness. It helps with security, but I would suggest just going ahead and keep on clicking that refresh image until something comes through that you can actually identify and see. Then you can go ahead and enter your birthday, but you can decide whether or not to display that to other forum members. And then also, if you were referred by somebody, you can enter that information there. The time zone, that should default to your computer, but you should double check and make sure. And then you can opt in, and I would suggest opting in for these emails in terms if the administrators want to go ahead and send you some notices about the forum, and then you would complete registration. Now what happens is they would send you an email to the email address that you put up here, and that email will include a link, and all you would have to do is go ahead and click on that link, and that link will bring you inside the forum, and you would now be a member of the DailyFX forums. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening.